BBN, it's that time. Time for another episode of Bleav in Kentucky, Bleav Podcast Network, number one podcast network for professionals, alongside the legend, double zero, Tony Delk. My name is Vinny Hardy. What's good with you, TD?
Man, I'm happy to be here. Another day on the right side, and like I said, we just enjoying, another one of our podcasts we putting together here. I'm excited about, what's going on in the sports world and just what's going on around the United States. I mean, a lot has been happening, so we got a lot of topics to get into, as this day unfolds.
Absolutely. We got a special guest coming here in about 10, 15 minutes. We're going to have Anna Tarullo join us. She's a co-host on BBN Tonight. We had her penciled in a few weeks ago. When stuff comes up, when you're trying to do live shows and trying to record TV, you've been on TV, so you know how that works. So we got her rescheduled for this evening, so we'll be able to hop on and talk some cats with Anna as well. So looking forward to that in about a few minutes. Y'all will definitely enjoy that once the podcast is released and ready. We'll probably save some of that for her to, the Kentucky volleyball in the Final Four. Definitely talk with Anna about that. First Final Four ever. On the football side, we probably talk about that with her too, but Kentucky's doing some recruiting, man. We've been used to it on the basketball side with players such as yourself, Ron Mercer, Anthony Davis, you name it, all through the years, Kentucky getting big time recruits. As fans were used to that. In football, it's still kind of like, wow, these dudes coming to Kentucky. We got a pair of twins out of your home state of Tennessee, the Wade twins, Keaton and Destin Wade, an outside linebacker. The other one's an athlete. He's played some quarterback. They're from Spring Hill, Tennessee, right outside of Nashville.
Right.
They picked the Cats Friday evening, right there in Big Orange Country. You had a big offensive lineman on Saturday, right outside of Louisville, Keontae Goodwin, 4-star offensive tackle that picked the Cats. So that's 3 top recruits in a period of 24 hours. And Kentucky usually doesn't ever get those types. The Goodwin kid picked Kentucky over Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, you name it. He picked Kentucky over them. And back in the day, Kentucky would beat out your recruits that, he picked Kentucky over Eastern Michigan, Miami of Ohio, schools like that. So the talent is just, the recruiting under Stoops is just continuing to get better and better for us to see players like this come to Kentucky.
Well, I think, like I said, he's definitely, trending. As they said, trending is the new word for the new generation. We're trending. You're trending right now. He's trending in the right direction. Stoops has done a tremendous job of just coming in and, bringing in, top quality players, because that's always the hardest thing when you compete against, UGA, Alabama, Auburn, Florida, is that, even Texas A&M, who was added to the conference. Are you going against some high-powered programs and programs that, LSU can't leave them out, program that have won championships? So when you can start kind of like plucking those players away from like a UGA, Alabama, and, you're able to coach and develop that talent, that's where, now you're going to win 8, 9 games. You're going to go to bigger bowl games, because that's what you're trying to do with your program, is eventually get to one of those, get to a Final Four, have a double-digit win season, but also, can you sustain it? It's one thing to do it one year, but when you look at what Nick Saban has done, he's a well-oiled machine, but he's been successful because he didn't just start it, he's still doing it. You see these coaches these hot coaches that, these NCAA and sometimes, that are being hired by different programs that have one good season, or they make a nice NCAA tournament run. And it's like, oh yeah, they're the new hot coaches, but never do anything after that. They get to the program and it just, the program is maybe one good season, but to sustain that, when you hire that kind of coach, when you hire those caliber coaches, they bring you instant success, not through a media report or media, conference call now, but they actually go out there and deliver. So I'm excited about what Kentucky football has done over the years, but just where they're going in the right direction.
So you're saying that the climb to get there is hard, climb to get up the mountain, but staying there is even harder than getting there once you, as far as keeping it going, right?
Yeah, I have to say that. And the reason why is that I'm not gonna say it's easy to go into a program that's already at the bottom. You know what I'm saying? Like there is nowhere to go. So we all know, okay, yeah, if you come into a program that's already at the bottom, like you have those, you can only go up from there. So sometimes those are jobs that when these people take these jobs, in the back of their mind is like, well, hey, even if I'm here 3 or 4 years and we see a couple of games improvement, maybe get into the conference championship, to those people who've been losers for so long, is that wow, we got something good going right here. But the great coaches, they're able to build a program, and we've seen many coaches who have left high majors and go to other high majors and be successful. And we've also seen coaches go from high majors to another high major, and it's just, it's almost like a lateral movement, but you're moving down. You're not getting the same kind of players because now you're competing in a different conference. So when you come to the SEC and you got to compete against, the different university and the university won championships, it's different. When you that big dog and you have it rolling, and especially with someone like Nick Saban, and but he had to. It's funny, he left LSU and he was, went to Miami and it was like, oh yeah, he's going to do well on the next level. He didn't. He went to the next level. He didn't have as much power as he thought he would have, and the players didn't respond the same. The players are grown men who are making millions of dollars. They're not those collegiate students that aren't getting paid. Collegiate athletes, student athletes that are not getting paid. These are grown men that feed their families, and at the end of the day, they're gonna respect you, but you have to respect them too. And I think that's the difference in coaches going from the collegiate level to the NFL or NBA or MLB, and they find out, hey, you know what? These are some different kind of men. They are men. They're not young men, and those men want to be treated with respect.
Speaking of grown men too, that made me want to ask you, because I've been thinking about it and been forgetting. When you're playing an NBA as you did, and you see guys come in, because everybody's trying to feed their family. Same thing at the G League, and it's a fight to try to get up there. When you're in the NBA and you see a guy come in on a 10-day contract, and because DeMarcus Cousins just signed a 10-day with the Clippers, they signed him to another 10-day with the Clippers just a couple of days ago. What's the perception of the core roster when you see that guy come in on a 10-day? How are y'all looking at that guy? Is it kind of side eye, or is everybody hoping he kind of makes it? How do y'all view a guy coming in on a 10-day?
I think it's different with DeMarcus, man, and it's because we know that name. It's not like you bringing in a 10-day guy that's from a mid major or someone who's had a few good games. He's part of that organization. I mean, DeMarcus is a household name because, first of all, going to Kentucky, being a high draft pick, being an all-star. And before he got hurt, he was in line to get a mega deal, like a 130, 40, $150 million deal. If that injury, if he had never torn his Achilles, and then he goes to play with Golden State to get himself back, and then he gets re-injured. So DeMarcus is different, for some of those guys, because he's still in his prime. He's still, if he had never got injured, he would have been in the prime of his career, probably making upwards of $35 to $40 million. I mean, he was getting ready to sign a mega deal, and even before he left Sacramento, they had talked about they were discussing giving DeMarcus a supermax, which would have put him up in that neighborhood. And, for him just to still stay humble, to still have love for the game. I mean, it speaks volume for a player like DeMarcus that he hasn't given up. He was saying, hey, man, if my mom could raise these kids and, that, I'm not going to ever complain. And that's the kind of attitude that he has taken. And that's one of the reasons why when you bring him in, I haven't heard anyone say DeMarcus was a bad teammate. He's always been a high character guy and a guy that he comes to play. He gives you his all. And, I hate when people say, oh, the game is past DeMarcus. And I'm like, no, the game hadn't passed DeMarcus. I mean, DeMarcus is more about the opportunity, putting them in the right situation. I think that's what's happening. Hopefully with the Clippers, he's found his. They've given him a chance to do what he's done well, and that's be a force on the inside, but also a player that can be a leader.
Absolutely. We mentioned our guest just a few minutes ago, and she is here with us now. The co-host of BBN Tonight, LEX Channel 18, every weeknight at 7:30. We're talking about Anna Tarullo. Anna, welcome to Bleav in Kentucky. How you doing?
Doing so good. Thanks for having me on. I'm sorry it took me a minute to get here. It was crazy today.
Hello, Anna. How are you doing?
Hello, Tony. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm excited to have you. I know Vinny has been talking you up for a couple of months now, and he was hopefully we can get our first female on. And I told him, I said, listen, I gave him a list. I'm like, get these. Let's incorporate some women into what we're doing. I mean, y'all are the backbone of the United States, and so to have you on, we are honored.
Thank you. I'm so honored you wanted to have me on. I've been wanting to come on for a minute, and oh my gosh, Vinny, you had me on a couple. Maybe about a year ago when I was still in West Virginia, and so I'm so happy to be on again, wearing my blue in Kentucky.
That's right. That's right. Because you were in Charleston, West Virginia, sports director over there. And now that was what I wanted to ask you too. When everybody kind of moves around different markets, in TV and that. Was it always your goal to come back to Kentucky? Did you think it would happen this soon? Or what was your
Well, that's so funny you ask that, because I think I'm in like the smaller group here, the minority. It was never my desire or wish to move back to Kentucky. So I'm from Louisville. And for some reason, I don't know, ever since I was a little girl, I'm like, I don't want to live in Louisville. I want to go do something else. I'm a city person. So I went to the University of Georgia. After I graduated, I lived in New York and DC. Then I moved back home to Louisville for a little bit. And I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to go back to a big city. I want to be in Chicago. I want to be some Indianapolis, maybe somewhere where there's some stuff happening. Well, that didn't pan out right away. So I ended up taking that job in Charleston, West Virginia. As we know, that is not a big city. And I was so nervous about it because I was like, oh my gosh, it's smaller. What am I going to do? But I liked it more than I thought I would. And so then when I would drive through Lexington on my way home to Louisville from West Virginia, I would hit Lexington and be like, oh my God, civilization. There's tall buildings. Look at this. When before I was like, oh my God, Lexington, back on the farm. No way. So now that I moved here, I am just loving it. And I kind of prefer Lexington to Louisville, actually. Here, I could stay here, but it feels great. I mean, the people are awesome and there's a lot going on. So I feel so lucky.
So tell our listeners why the big city over the small town? I think in a small town, everyone will know who you are. Sometime in a big city, you can get lost. So why would you prefer a bigger city over a small town?
That's just my personality. I think, there is something to be said for being big fish, small pond. And like when you're doing like some news that's good, sports, and like the last market I was in the sports, it wasn't great. We covered a lot of Marshall and some Kentucky stuff too, but and Marshall's great, but it's just a different kind of fan base. But besides just working in a sports market, I just love cities anyway. Since I was little, there's something about the energy. What I loved about New York living there, you can walk, out of your front door every day and anything could happen. You can meet anybody who's connected in some kind of industry you want to be in. You never know what's going to happen, who you're going to meet. And I'm a high energy person. I just like a little bit of a buzz going on. I like, just a city that has some soul and like a colorfulness to it. So that's what I loved about big cities. Always something going on, something different, something for everybody.
That's true. That is true. And so it was like just the chance to come back for BBN Tonight. I guess did you even see it coming? It just
no.
I mean, because
and like the biggest, like I feel like there's been some moments in my life where I feel like God has just held me in the palm of his hand and just totally handpicked something for me. And that's what this is, because not only I can talk about UK in my sleep, I probably do, honestly, because I for so long loved it for so long. Just my archival of knowledge, that's what kind of ignited my passion for sports, was Kentucky basketball. And even when I went to Georgia, I'd always have my blue on because that's just the way it was. So to be given the opportunity to just talk about it every day, I'm like pinching myself. And then to people that I know and care about, they care about this content. So, they're watching, and that is just so awesome. And, they reached out to me about the position, and even just the opportunity to work with the team on BBN Tonight. It's so different than any other opportunity you'd find in local news. So I'm not lying to you. Like every other day, I'm just like, how did this happen for me? Isn't that crazy? And the fact that it really does something for your headspace when they reach out to you and are like, hey, we think you'd be good for this. You go in there like, oh man, like I want to contribute. I'm ready.
So it seemed like it's been like a childhood dream of yours to be a co-host or to be a host or even have your own show. So when did this start for you? When did you knew that you want to be on TV?
Yeah. So I mean, young. I mean, really, I was about 5 or 6 years old, and I went to news broadcasters camp. I went to like a local news camp. I always knew I wanted to work in local news. And then I played basketball growing up. My dad was my coach. So oh my gosh, high school games, college games. We've been to a million Final Fours. So growing up, I was probably about 11 or 12 when I decided I wanted to be a sports broadcaster because, growing up, sitting with my dad, discussing everything gave me the confidence to look at a game that I had high basketball IQ, and that I could understand what was going on and have a conversation about it. So I was probably about 11 or 12. And I've never wavered from what I wanted to do. I did get out of the industry for a little bit when I lived in back home in Louisville for about a year. And I just felt so unfulfilled. So to be able to get back into it and now cover things that I care about, I just look back and I'm like, how did this happen for me?
So let's see. Oh, speaking of, you said high school, and we gave him a shout out last week because TD, she went to Sacred Heart in Louisville, and they just won the girls Sweet 16 for the state of Kentucky. So your high school is the state.
Yeah,
so
they were so happy for Coach Moyer and Coach Matt Carson, all of them. I mean, they look great, and that team is so young. Oh my gosh, they're gonna be great. They're gonna be so good.
Yeah, and so they brought it home, and they got a chance to make a nice little run there. When she went to Georgia, TD, she told us this when she was on Cats Talk Wednesday, my other podcast. Kentucky was in town. You were like a student reporter, sideline reporter for Georgia, but they were constantly fighting, trying to get her to wear red, and she wouldn't.
Not do. I wore blue to that game. It was Carl Towns, Willie Cauley-Stein year. Everyone was at that game. Charles Barkley came to that game. Bill Belichick was at that game.
Wow.
I didn't work every game, but for some reason I got put on this one. And our guy, Claude Felton, big sports information guy there, he came up to me and he was like, are you wearing blue? I was like, Claude, yes, you knew this about me.
So being a Louisville graduate, was your family a Cardinal fan, or were they like a big UK fan? Because it's sometimes when I think about Louisville, they're kind of split. It's either you're a Louisville Cardinal fan or you like Kentucky. But where did your family? What did they lay on top of this when it came down to?
1,000%, it's split, and I think that's what's so. I think it makes you like a more passionate UK fan growing up in Louisville because you have to defend your honor all the time because there's always John going on. So like your arguments get really, really good there. But so my dad is a Louisville grad, and then my brother and younger sister, my older brother went to U of L as well, and he was in like the marching band, pep band, all that stuff. So my brother's pretty much Louisville, but my dad, he kind of gave us the choice growing up what we wanted to be. I definitely went to more Louisville games growing up because it was right there. My dad, when it comes down to it, he's true blue. He'll lean blue for sure if they're playing each other. Yeah, but it took me to Rupp Arena just like one game, or even before that, just reading online about the history of Kentucky, and that it is such, you say the name Kentucky basketball, people everywhere know it. It'll give you goosebumps. Like the winningest program. How are you not going to cheer for that? And so then when you go to Rupp Arena and they play, Bittersweet Symphony, and you see all the old highlights and you see all the stuff in the Raptors, there's guys in blue blazers. I just like went the first time. I was like, I loved it. It was, I don't know. I've just always been it's stirred a feeling within me.
That's it. Now I know being on BBN Tonight, you cover all of the sports, and right now the topic of the day and the week is Kentucky volleyball making it to their first Final Four in school history.
They're killing it, dude. They're killing it. And I love Coach Skinner. We laugh all the time because all the girls on the team call him Craig. They're like, oh yeah, Craig said this, because they're like first name basis with their coach. It's hilarious. But what a mature team. I mean, they had every opportunity to kind of like talk about how the unfair treatment by the NCAA, their late start times, all this stuff. And this is how I know they really have a chance to win the whole thing, is that none of that affects them. They are focused. They're locked in. They're in their own rhythm. And I just think they're awesome. Allie Stumler is so cool. And she was great last night. They're just fun to watch. I don't want to jinx them, but they remind me of another really dominant Kentucky team from 5 or 6 years ago. That was really good. Just watching them in their matches, they haven't lost a set in the NCAA tournament, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So how was it? How did Coach Skinner get these young ladies to buy in? Because he's been there for some years, and Vinny and I was kind of talking about coaches who not have the game is past them. It's kind of like you have to adapt to newer generation. How has he been able to adapt to newer generation kids?
I think they call him by his first name. I think there's something so relatable about him, and he's so easy to talk to. He's been one of my favorite coaches that we've done Zooms and stuff with. But I was talking to a former coach, Kathy DeBoer. We did an interview with her last week, and she was just talking about, if your team is winning, the last thing you want to do is mess with anything mentally. You don't want to give them any sort of anxiety. Let them be them. It's more of a mental game at this standpoint than the physical game. When you've made it this far in the tournament. And they're so good. We saw them, they were down a little bit in that first set last night, and how calm they were. It didn't rattle him. I think he has a lot of maturity and a lot of experience on that team. And even all the girls that we talked to, they're so professional and so focused. They're not worried about the other teams. Just today, Allie Stumler was talking about, Madison Lilly, Gabby Curry, and she's like, I play with a lot of perfectionists. They're not worried about what the other team is doing. Each set, they're like, how can I get better? And Coach Skinner said that too. He said, they're 70-4 in the past 4 years in the SEC. And even that good, still every practice, how do I get better? Now it's a championship mentality.
And Purdue played them tough, like you mentioned the first set. Purdue was up 11-6. They were up 17-12. Kentucky would cut it to 2 or 3. Purdue would spurt away, and then they finally got it tied and took the lead. Second set, still a little bit back and forth. The third set, they just beat them down. It was 7-0, 11-1, and if it was a timed sport, they would have been on a running clock in that third set, because they just destroyed them.
It's wild. And so what I'm hoping for when they play Washington on Thursday, Washington, they've showed a lot of resilience. They've battled back. I think two or three of their matches have gone to 5 sets in the tournament. So you're hoping maybe that's worn them down by a little bit, and Kentucky can just put them away and get to that championship game. That's what I'm hoping for.
So they definitely have a chance. Like I said, it seemed like they've been dominant the last couple of years. But who was the one player you can say that's the leader on this team, that's helping them and spurring them and bringing the energy, but also showing the leadership ability, to have gotten them as far as they've gone?
I think last night it was absolutely, without a doubt, it was Allie Stumler. She was unbelievable. I don't know the terms as well for volleyball because I didn't play, but she had a couple of really, really big, just monster plays. She even had a double-double. And I don't know. I love her attitude too. There's not a whole lot of, I don't know. They're there to put in the work. They're down to business type of people. Madison Lilly's great too. And Gabby Curry. They're a really well-rounded team. The Skinner girls, who are unrelated to Craig. Isn't that so funny? They have 2 girls on the team with the same. But
wow.
They've been great too.
We had on the other podcast, of course, you met TB last week, a couple weeks ago, Tony. But we had Leah Edmond on our Cat Talk Wednesday podcast, who finished her career last year and arguably the best player in Kentucky volleyball history. So really? I was like you. I was asking her a lot of the terms. I was like, I know you're going to probably think I'm crazy and these questions are so basic, but I don't know the X's and O's. So I'm like, what does a libero do? I'm
Right.
like, what does this, what I said, tell me about styles of play. We know in basketball, 3-point shooting team,
Right.
they pounded into the post. Football, it's a power running team. I said, what are the styles of play for volleyball and what type of style does Kentucky play? And she said it's basically on how fast they hit it, how fast they serve it over. It's a tempo thing. Kentucky is one of the faster tempos, not the fastest, but they're kind of a quicker tempo team. And of course, they're really strong defensively. And, because they were blocking a lot of Purdue's stuff. Every time they try to spike it, they're just two girls there swatting it back in their face. So that was, she enlightened me a lot. Cause like I said, I don't know a lot of it as well. And I think, with, unfortunately, the men not making it to March Madness, the whole fan base is just kind of, we got a tournament to watch. Let's watch this volleyball team, and everybody's excited about it. And
kind of cool.
This time of year, we're just supposed to be watching some kind of tournament play in Kentucky.
I need to watch that episode so I can learn more about. I saw this tweet last night and it cracked me up. It was like, all right, volleyball has the coolest terminology. It's like ace, kill, fake, spike.
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like it's like a spy or something.
Well, I have no idea how the terminology works. So as Vinny was calling out the terminology, I'm like, "Ooh, that's kind of cool." When you have to go to a transition to another sport. So my question to you is how. I mean, you've done different sports. You've done football, you've done the sideline reporting, you've done basketball. Is there one? Well, I know you like basketball more. How is it in football? How do you tell us being a sideline reporter to follow the game and to be able to interview the coaches and the players? How exciting is that? And also tell us about the weather. Because I know the weather becomes an issue on the football field.
God. So I really kind of got baptized by fire doing the sideline. My first sideline experience, well, actually I did a little bit of college stuff in Washington, D.C. I covered Georgetown has a football team. They're a little bit smaller, but those were kind of my first couple games. And I'm an idiot. And it was a night game. And it was in the fall, a little bit later that fall. It was bright and sunny out earlier in the day, so it felt good. So I wore a skirt and and a sweater, and then the sun went down, and I was like, oh my God. Thank God they were selling like apparel. I went and got like a Georgetown scarf, gloves, hat, blanket, jacket. I was decked out for the homerism, but I'm also an idiot. That was so dumb. But then I really got kind of baptized by fire. I covered a lot of arena football. And it was so fun. And to have that, some of my first experiences as a sideline reporter, it was great because in arena football, they kind of have these little like cages where the bench is. So I was in there the whole entire game. So and they would come to me on and off. So just to be that up close to the game and get a feel for it and be able to ask questions just kind of off the top of my head. But truly, I really love the pace of college football. It's a little for me doing sideline because I don't know, it's kind of easier to formulate there's like different storylines, but I don't know, I really like it. And then you kind of know you have more time in between your hits to really formulate a good question. But basketball definitely has my heart. That's my heart and soul right there.
I'm not a huge pet peeve guy, but it's like watching a game, or I'm not one that gets upset at the broadcasters or,
right,
whether they're good, whether it's John Madden or somebody that's not as good. Or,
right.
I'm not usually one. Sometimes you go to Twitter and you'll see a broadcaster trending because people are just ripping the person. I'm not that guy. But last night, after Florida and Wisconsin went off, it was 45 minutes until Kentucky and Purdue started. And there's a man and woman in the studio talking back and forth, talking about the match that just ended, kind of previewing Kentucky and Purdue a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I'm not picking just because it happened to be the female that said this, and it's not me at all. But
I know
the lady says, and look, we all know, even as casual fans know, Kentucky had never been to the Final Four in volleyball. And she's talking and she says, I don't think Craig Skinner has ever been to the national semifinal or the Final Four. I'm like, how do you get on TV and say, I don't think he's been to the Final Four? I said, why don't you look that up and know what you're talking about? Now, maybe I shouldn't have been so hard on her, but I think you should have your stuff together and don't get on there saying, I don't think he's been to the Final Four. look that up. And I mean,
Right.
y'all have been on TV. I haven't. Y'all two have, not me. So maybe I shouldn't be so hard on her, but I'm like, come on now.
Hopefully it just like came out wrong how she said it, because not only you didn't have, the games are dwindling down. You're getting a smaller amount each time. So about the teams going into it. And if it's your job to kind of transition in between, there's not that many things you could say. You would kind of know before a match. And if you're at ESPN, I mean, they have researchers where you would know that, so come on.
Yeah, I'm like, if the biggest storyline is Kentucky's gonna make it to the first Final Four ever if they win, and she's up there talking about, I don't think he's ever been before. So I just had to get that off my chest, y'all. I appreciate that.
So Anna,
therapy.
Anna, when you for some of our young listeners who are young ladies and would like to follow in the footsteps of someone like yourself, what kind of advice would you give them?
Oh man. Where do I begin? That's such a great question. I think I would just begin with say yes to everything. And then your first couple of jobs, this is what I would tell people. Your first couple of jobs and internships and while you're in college, it is not about you. You might be there to kind of get a reel and get some experience and put some stuff together. I get it. But the interns that I see go the furthest, they have a team mentality from the beginning. They're there to make the team better, to help out in any way they can. And a lot of the connections I made in college that really ended up helping me, it was at CBS Sports and, ESPN. I would be a runner on college football game days, and even before. So basically what that is anything they need, you go do it. I mean, it could be anything. You're just helping with production.
Right.
And through a lot of sideline reporters who gave me a lot of advice. So that's big. The other thing I would say, if you want to be on air, work on your voice, and even, listen to yourself. If you're on TV, don't listen to yourself. And to have kind of a deeper, more authoritative voice, not everybody naturally has it, but you can work on it. If you're a woman in sports broadcasting, it's really nice not to be like, I don't know, the game was okay. You have to be like, really hold your ground, and know what you're talking about. What you're saying. That is probably the best advice I got in college that's still helpful to me today. And that's what I notice more, when I go back and watch my clips, I more critique my voice and how I sound than, what I look like or a lot of other things. It's just really important.
Was there a mentor?
You know what? Nikki Noto, she did some stuff with ESPNU. I met her at a Final Four. She has helped me a lot. There's so many women in this industry who are willing to help that if you aren't, is just crazy, because nobody gets anywhere without the help of these, women who've gone before you.
Right.
And another thing I'll say too, when I graduated college, everybody's in a rush. They want to be the first one out of their age group to get on ESPN or get on Fox Sports South or whatever. And I remember people who were older telling me, like, what are you in a rush for? Like, you have your whole career. And so when I just got, into the business, I was more about like stepping stones, and like the title of the job meant more to me than, what I was doing. And then I kind of had a change of perspective. And I was like, no, I need to really hone my craft. And it matters more about what I bring to the job than whatever that job title is being attached to me, So work on the small skills, and then you'll get noticed for that's what happened to me when I was in West Virginia. I came in with the mentality of like, I'm going to come in there and try to be as valuable as I can to my team and contribute and get good at the small things. And then once you have kind of built that success, other opportunities, you attract them by being the best you can be. So that's helped me a lot. And then Olivia Harlan Decker, she's married now. I always want to call her by her maiden name. She was my friend in college, and we're the same age, but we talk all the time, and just some wisdom that she's poured into me. Watching her prep has been so helpful. There's so many girls I went to college with, and a little bit older than me, that we all share notes on like sideline reporting, and people from the outside looking in would think it would be catty or competitive, but I'm telling you, some of the nicest, most inclusive women are in sports broadcasting, because we've all been there. We all know what it's like. And I love seeing my friend shine. I mean, it can't hurt you. It's just, it's a good time to be a woman in sports.
Absolutely. Now, do you prefer live or recorded shows? Because, is there
live? Oh, because you have the adrenaline, and it's like, you get out of your head because you can only do it once. So like if me and Keith we've done one live show since I've been here. To me, it's more fun because it's like, all right, even if I mess up, you got one take, you just got to keep going. When it's taped, it's hard to get the same energy you would if it were live. And then especially knowing if you can like start over, it's like, you get more in your head to do it perfectly. But when it's live, you throw perfect out the window and you just kind of have fun. So that's what I like.
And explain us, how has it been working with Keith? I know it's new. It seemed like our relationship has gotten a lot tighter, but just get an opportunity to work with someone new when you work with so many different people.
Totally. And Keith is awesome. And I am telling you, this staff that I'm on now, I'm not just saying this, it has been the best mix of personalities and best environment out of anywhere I've ever worked, not just in news, not just in TV. I mean, they did a hell of a job hiring people with a similar energy, mindset, even sense of humor, and just everybody's willingness to put in effort to have a good show. I don't know. When I came in for my interview, I did a little trial run with Keith and it was great. And I left that day and I was just like, oh my gosh, I feel like I already fit in with them so well. I was like, I hope the feeling is mutual. But Keith is awesome. And I'm telling you, you don't meet many people in your life where you say, oh, Keith Burner. Every single person, the first thing that comes out of their mouth is Keith is the greatest guy. You don't meet many people like that. And that's what everybody said. He's awesome. And I really like his approach to kind of leading the sports department and leading the team. He just, it's a great place to be and to work.
Have to get him on here with us at some point. And if you go in tomorrow and he says his ears were burning, we just tell him we were talking about him on Bleav in Kentucky.
Me, Keith.
Exactly. Now you mentioned, I think when we had you on last year, that you weren't a huge NBA team fan, but you were an AI guy. AI was your guy. Now,
AI is like my dream interview. Like when I would do Midnight Madnesses at Georgetown, I got to interview Dikembe Mutombo one time. I got to do a little finger wag. It was the best moment of my life this far. I remember I like walked home for part of the way after that, and I was just like on cloud. I felt like I was floating. I was like, I interviewed Dikembe Mutombo. He was so nice, so cool. And so then I covered the next, Midnight Madness. I said March Madness. Midnight Madness for Georgetown. And I was like, oh my God, if Allen Iverson was there, I would fall over and I would die. He's awesome. I have a t-shirt of his slam cover, the one where he's got, the braids, and it's my favorite. His slam covers are the best. I don't know. I'm just a big AI fan. He's just my favorite.
Now, TD, I got to ask, because you came into the league in 96 with AI. Mm-hmm. First of all, first question, because what was it like for y'all as pro players? Because we all remember when AI crossed MJ. He crossed him up twice and hit the jumper on him in 96. Right. So what was the talk in the locker room for you as a rookie? What were the veterans saying? Was it a lot of chatter about that play? Because it hit Sports Center, we were all like, oh, AI crossed MJ.
Right. I think as a player, you don't think about it. I mean, everyone makes a good move. I mean, and he's crossed over a lot of people. It's just like Michael Jordan has dunked on so many guys. Dikembe has blocked so many shots. And as a player, you don't really get caught up in that. There's too many games to get caught up into what just happened the game before or the night that you just played and someone might have dunked on you. It's like, okay, we have another game. So really you kind of block it out. And coming into 96 with the 96 class and us having so many talented players, you didn't think that a class of so many young players, would be Hall of Famers, but will have successful careers. And, you look back at AI and Ray Allen and Stephon, all these guys were coming, Sharif, Antoine, all these guys were coming out of school early, which I hated. I was like, dang, being a senior, like these guys are getting, I would have been a lottery pick and would have made a little bit more money my first couple of years, but it was very competitive. A lot of scouting work was done, on that younger generation of players during that time. And, it really, to me, I think the league was losing some veteran players, and it was like the next wave, which was going to be your Kobe, your AI, even a Peja Stojakovic who didn't come over early, but you could kind of see where the trend was going, because when owners think about their organization. They want to definitely have a face of organization. A few of these guys from the 96 draft ended up being the face of these some of these different organizations. So it was important that they did their homework. You know, when you were bringing a guy like AI and a guy like Kobe Bryant, because it's so funny. I tell people the story. I didn't know who Kobe was. And for those who say as a sophomore, junior, senior in college, we didn't know him. You know, we really didn't. You know, we knew during the draft because I was going to Charlotte. You know, I worked out for Charlotte twice. And Kobe was, I think he might have came in for a workout, but still, high school players wasn't going. Because back in 95, you know, Kevin Garnett was like the first big time high school player that came out during our time. And then even though Kobe was drafted, you know, 13, we really didn't, I mean, I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, okay, young kid. I knew who Vlade Divac was because Vlade Divac had just lost to my favorite team, the Bulls. So I knew exactly who Vlade was, but I had no clue who Kobe Bryant was. And 20 years some odd later, I mean, Hall of Famer, you know, and just one of those great drafts we can look back on and look at the talent pool that was in that draft.
Mm-hmm. My second thing for you too, because you know, back in the 90s, it was AI's crossover. Tim Hardaway had one before that. His wasn't as big as AI's, but it was real quick and explosive, and he got a lot of guys with his. The only guy Euro stepping back then was probably like Manu Ginobili. Now everybody has a Euro step. So are you a Euro step guy? What did you think about it? What do you think about it now?
It's so funny that I'm teaching my kids, you know, the Euro step that I've never used in my life. I'm like, okay, this is how you do the Euros. This is how you do your Euro step. I've never, you know, I stopped playing ball maybe a year or two ago, but I'm still teaching a move that this generation loves. Yes. And if you think about Ginobili, Manu Ginobili, when he first tried to move, it was a travel. It was a travel because they had never seen the move before. Yeah. So it's like bringing, like, you know, I know Anna, AI crossover was a carry. He held the ball and then he crossed you over. So it was one of those moves that as you're watching, it was like, hold on, that's supposed to be a carry. And then next thing you know, he crosses you over. And before you know it, you know, he's scoring or he's going by you. And then you find yourself on SportsCenter. But that move Manu Ginobili brought to the United States is, when I tell you it's a signature move, the next signature move will be James Harden step back. That you have to incorporate the Euro step and also the step back to this generation because that's what they're seeing. And, you know, Anna, you can contest to this. This generation is more about highlights, not about watching full games.
For sure. Just like I feel like with music too, it's not about whole albums anymore. It's just about songs. Like there's this big of snippets. And I don't know whether that's good or bad. Are you showing the nitty gritty and the ugly part? You know, how are defenders going to be coming out now? Everyone just wants to be Steph Curry and shoot it. So
since we're on music, do you have a favorite artist?
Oh, she can talk some music with us, TD. She can talk some music now. She knows about Anna knows about the verses and all that. She can talk music with us all day.
Parliament. I was listening to the Thriller album today on my way to work. PYT. Earth, Wind, and Fire. Vinny knows about Earth, Wind, and Fire. And
Vinny knows that's one of my favorite groups. About 2 years ago, I had a chance to go to the concert here in Atlanta, and I'm telling you, I've been to several concerts. That was by far the best.
And Chic opened for them, and I'm cracking up because Earth, Wind, and Fire gets through their whole set list, and like people are starting to leave, and I'm probably like the youngest person in there by a long shot. People are walking around like they haven't played In the Stone yet. They're coming back for the encore. People are like, oh my God, Chick, she's right. So they came back. Come on, you guys, don't play with me. I know every song and when they're gonna play it. I was like, you cannot.
Dude, I told you.
Like that kind of funk. Disco has been my favorite genre since I was like 8 years old. Like my mom had a disco. Put it on, knock on wood. I don't know, just always liked it because it's happy, gets you moving. It's just good stuff.
Oh, we can do a whole podcast on music with Anna. The verses, the Earth, Wind, and Fire, Ozzy Brothers verses, the D'Angelo verses. Anna knows all about it.
See, I love surprising people, like talking about music. They think I don't know what I'm talking about, and then I'll be like, P-Funk. I'll be like, you know, give up the fun. Like, I don't know. They just think I don't know.
So give us a young artist that you're like, are you you're a little baby fan? I mean, who was one of the younger artists that you like?
Dua Lipa, I almost said her name wrong. I don't really listen to a lot of new music, but I do like Dua Lipa because I think like some of her stuff is starting to sound a little bit more like new disco. So that's what, and I like Bruno Mars, of course, because all of his stuff sounds old. Like I just like,
Okay.
I read this really awesome Quincy Jones article one time, and he was like, listen, people don't make music anymore. He's like, it used to be musicians and you had 8 notes and you do whatever you want with them, and you have to go and learn and be trained on a piano, you know, on a horn, on whatever you're being trained, and that's how you create a song. Now it's just like all online, and you're just, or online on the computer, it's digital, and you're using all these weird snippets. It's not like a musician anymore. He also said this, and I was like, damn, he's right. He was talking about how if you're going to use a sample, and everything now is sampled, that it has to be so good that people want to listen to your song and not the original. So like when I hear that, I think of like Hypnotize, like a Notorious B.I.G. song, and I'm like, that's because he did it really well. That's what you want to listen to. And now, I mean, you just hear so many samples, and it just makes me want to turn on the older music instead of what I'm listening to. No?
Because he took that Herb Alpert and made it his own. Yeah, the Rise from, that's it. But and my dad said something, and this was probably back in the 90s now, but he said, I would love to see if Marvin Gaye was alive now, because back then you had Blackstreet coming out, you had all that.
Right.
I would love to see what Marvin Gaye would have been able to do now with the way music is, which I mean we will never know, but that was always an intriguing thought if he would have been around to see what he sounded like. He'd have been older, but he'd been doing the new stuff, and what kind of twist he would have put on music.
The one tweeted and said Marvin Gaye's dad was from Nicholasville, or somebody tweeted that. And I was like, what?
I think he was. Yeah, I think I was reading something came up. I want to say he is from Kentucky, Marvin Gaye dad. I have to check and make sure. But I think my sources had him being from some part of Kentucky. But it's, if we think about the music in the 70s, 60s, 70s, is that we actually knew artists. Like to me, there's too many artists out right now, and it's so funny that, I hate to say this generation, I keep calling them millenniums, but just how they're making music, how fast they're making music. No one is really buying albums. It's more about streaming, and most of these artists make their money from from shows. I was looking at, I think, what is it, Moneybag Yo? So they, but I'm thinking like he's getting paid $125,000 per show. I'm like, really? Who's paying him that kind of money? But these artists are making so much more money than the great artists of decades ago.
Right. Beyonce had a really good quote one time. She was talking about, maybe this is when she was playing Etta James, and she said, it's so different now because you sell the image, like you sell yourself as a person, really, and it's about, what she's wearing, this is what she wore. But back then, you only had the radio. You didn't necessarily have TV, you didn't have People magazine. So you knew Etta James' voice when you heard it. You knew she's a singer. It wasn't like, oh, that's Beyonce. Now when we think of Beyonce, like her voice, her songs don't necessarily come to mind. Think about what she looks like or what she wears. And I was like, that is so interesting.
It is. It really is. It makes it as accessible as it is. It makes it harder from a vocal standpoint. As weird as that sounds. I had one listener question, TB, that I meant to ask you, just flipping it back to basketball. It may put you on the spot, it may not. But Mike Patton from down in Nashville wanted to know who your favorite teammate was.
Oh man, hey, you know what? I can't answer that one. I think everyone knows that probably my favorite teammate was the person who I spent 4 years in college with. That was Walter McCarty. And we ended up playing 2 years with the Boston Celtics. And we probably talk, once a week now. I had to send him my daughter wanted to send a graduation announcement to him. I was like, hey, let me call him up. And of course we get on the phone, we're talking about, just the NBA coaching. But when I say just a really great person, someone I enjoyed rooming with for 4 years. And our relationship started at the Kentucky Derby Festival. I know you probably, and it's probably before your time. It was 91, 92. So we were actually roommates then. So when we had our chance, we kind of was coming to college, and I was like, hey, we already know each other. Let's be roommates. But even going back before that game, John Wallace and I became really good friends. So John Wallace was my McDonald's All-American roommate. And John Wallace and I, we're still good friends to this day. And, it was tough winning the championship in '96 and playing against John Wallace, who was a good friend of mine. So it's, if I say anyone, and I had a lot of really good teammates, on several NBA teams, guys that I clicked with, but even on our '96 team, I thought we was a close-knit bunch of guys. We had a few different transfers, but just how Coach Pitino was able to mesh all the talent, get us to sacrifice, get all of us to buy in, because it's so hard when you have that much talent. And with myself being a senior, Walter being a senior, Mark Pope, we was thinking past college, because we knew in a few months our season was going to be over with, and we had to look at the next stage of our life, which was for us the NBA. And it's really just trying to transition into your next career, your next move in life. And it's always, Anna, you can attest to this, it's scary to not know what's next. It's like when you finish and it's like, where do I go next? Like, what's my next challenge? It's scary for those former NBA players, and even as broadcasters, trying to figure out what's next when, hey, let's say a company doesn't bring you back and you got to figure out, like, what's my next job?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I have a question for you, Tony. When you watch a Coach Pitino coach team now, do you recognize some of the things he's doing and be like, oh yeah, just like bring you back?
It does. I tell you what was funny was years ago when he was coaching at Louisville and my nephew was on the team. And I remember going back and I watched practice for a couple of days, and he was so different in how he coached us to how he was coaching my nephew. And I was, when I tell you I was blown away, I was like, he would never let us do that. He would never let us talk in practice. He would never let us, because we still had, I went and watched practice with Russ Smith. And I mean, some of the things that he would try to do and he attempted to do, coaches, he went along with it. And, so he was able, even as we see him coach right now, he's able to adapt. A lot of coaches that probably coached with him during his tenure, those coaches really, it was hard to adapt to this generation when, you coach guys hard. There might have been some verbal abuse that was going on, things that we were used to hearing. I mean, I feel like this. I heard so many things. I was like, listen, I don't even care anymore. But you can't talk to this generation like that, without their feelings being hurt. They're a little sensitive. And, Vinny, we talked maybe a couple other podcasts ago, but just this whole transfer portal is not to say it's ridiculous. I think you, as a collegiate student, you have a right to, if you're not, I'm not going to say playing, but if you're in a situation where you have to compete and you leave because you don't like competition, I don't think that's the reason to leave and go to another school. But it's one thing if a coach is not playing you, or you don't like the city. There's things that can arouse, that can, persuade you one way or another. But when it comes down to competition and you're running for competition, I don't like that.
Right.
Makes sense. That makes sense. Is there anything in the next couple of days, little sneak previews that you can tell us that's coming up on BBN tonight? A little teaser.
So the UK cheer and dance team, they're heading to nationals. We talked to them and that was so fun. And it was really cool to talk to cheer because they're so dominant and the stuff that they do is just mind bending. I mean, we were watching some of their practice video and it's like, they are the most athletic people I've ever seen in my life. It's crazy. And they have such a winning and championship culture that I feel like a lot of people don't know about because, they're there cheering on our other teams and our other sports. So to be able to talk to them is so cool. And then, good God, Kentucky football is killing it on the recruiting trail. Yahtzee after Yahtzee. So that's so cool. We've talked a lot about that. We've had a really fun time with football this spring because it's the first time we've really been able to sit down with any of the players or coaches in over a year because everything was done, because of through Zoom and stuff. So that has been really fun. But I think we're just volleyball focused right now. We're like, come on, bring it home. It would be so nice to have a little piece of hardware in our cabinet, new piece.
That's right.
Especially after our Kentucky Wildcat men's
I know.
didn't get an invite.
Tony, I know the first time that I like found out about you, kind of. Did you know Carly Omerod, who played for Kentucky and she wore your number? Doubles.
Oh yes, I do. Yeah,
Yeah.
I met her. Yes.
Yeah. She wore your number, but she played at Sacred Heart too, and she was a couple years older than me.
Yes.
And doubles were there too, and so I looked up to her so much. I was like, oh my god, Carly Omerod is a basketball goddess. Like I thought she was famous. And it was like, okay. One time I was like reading an interview about her, and it was like, why do you wear a 0-0? And she's like, I wear a 0-0 because of Tony Delk. So I was like maybe like 5th grade, and I feel like that's the first time your name ever came into my consciousness because of Omerod rocking your number. Isn't that cool?
Yes. I got a chance to meet her while I think I might have been on the coaching staff, and we took a picture together. And I told her I was honored that she wore my number for so many years. I say it brought me so much good luck that, you know, when you think about a number that you choose as a high school player, and you can keep wearing that number through college, NBA, you know, I said it did me well. And the reason why I chose the number was because of my brother. My older brother wore 00. He was in college probably, man, I want to say before I was even born.
Oh, yeah. Isn't that funny how it gets passed down? Like it originally came from your brother, and then you wore it, Carly wore it. Now I'm sure there's a bunch of girls who wore it because of Carly. So to think of brother to like little girls playing right now, that's wild to think about.
It really is. It really is. Man, I had another question too and forgot it. But yeah, you mentioned your brothers is everybody like about 6'1"? Do they have long arms like you? Because everybody talks about Tony Delk's wingspan. Are your brothers all about the same height, and do they have that wingspan like you?
Well, I have 5 brothers, so we're all different heights. You know, 6'4", 6'3", I think 6'2", 6'1". So we're right around the same age. I just happen to get a longer wingspan, which allowed me to be able to be a much better defender than I was in, because I really didn't do a whole lot of defending in high school. I was about scoring. And when I got to Kentucky, see, Anna, you don't know this. See, people see me as winning a championship, being the most valuable player. I was about to be in the transfer portal in 1992.
Transfer portal.
I wasn't playing, you know, so it's like coming in, being one of the top players in the country and sitting back and just watching, you know, and watching my peers play. So I remember having a conversation with Coach Pitino, telling him that, hey, you know, when the season ends, I'm going to transfer to another school. Wow. And it's so funny when you're being recruited by these college coaches that they're going to tell you everything. Hey, you're going to play this amount of minutes, and, you know, you're going to be on TV, and, you know, so he sold all that to me. But, you know, a lot of it was I had to get better, had to mature. It's my first time really leaving home and having to grow up. And as I stated earlier, having a challenge from a senior that was not going to give me his position, you know. So I tell my kids in my program, the TDBA, Tony Delk Basketball Academy, competition. You got to compete. I say a senior job to a sophomore, junior is to keep that sophomore, junior on the bench. And your job is to try to take that person's job. And I said, that's what I was trying to do every day at practice. And that senior was trying to keep me on the bench. So I had to learn a lot. You know, you had to go through adversity, kind of see what kind of person you are, if you're up for the challenge, if you are a real competitor, because some people say, I like to compete. Most kids don't like to compete. Most kids like to move from program to program in AAU and high school to high school. And when a competition is right in front of their face, they fold. And I was not going to be one of those guys, because my brothers who were older than me, they taught me so much about the game, about being a competitor, not giving up and just working hard, and your opportunity, your time will come, but will you be ready?
Right. I feel like now it's so much more about like ego and bruised ego and what it looks like you are if you're supposed to be a top recruit. And I think that's just culturally how it is, you know, with social media. I think it's bred a lot of that, but you know, you get so much better from competition. And it's not just like, you know, playing against each other in practice, these players are better, you're going to get better, but just the mentality of like pushing the bar. What reason do you have to push the bar if you're already the best and you're getting your ass kissed every day, you know, and like, you're so great. Blah, blah, blah. So I think it's so interesting because you obviously know from experience, but, and can say that, but so many people now, they say, oh man, I'm not for the transfer portal. Like you're not allowed to say that, or like you're wrong. So that's hard because it's like, you've been in this situation. What would you say to a lot of these guys who, I have 2 questions for you. one is, what would you say to a lot of these guys who want to transfer just after 1 year? Two is, where else were you looking if you were going to transfer from Kentucky? Where would you have gone?
Okay, to your first question, it's I think, guys just got to be ready to fight it out, and I think you learn from the person in front of you. They can help give you more experience. They're only going to teach you more about the game, especially things that you don't know. And so when guys are thinking about transfer, I'm like, you really have to consider where you're going. You own a scholarship. You earned a scholarship to a place that you wanted to go, and the decision that you made. You know what I'm saying? Like, my mom told me, she was like, you made this decision. She said, I didn't want to go to school there. She said, so you're not coming back home. She said, you have to go somewhere else. You're not coming back here. So she kind of forced me to grow up in this generation, because when they call mom, what does mom do? Okay, baby, where you want to go to school? It's the coach's fault. So instead of blaming someone, you have to look in the mirror yourself and say, I'm responsible for who I am. I can lie to my parents. I can lie to the coach. I can lie to friends. You can't lie to yourself. And the second part of your question, it was probably going to be Memphis, University of Memphis now, but it was Memphis State back then, and it was closer to home. But, staying was the best decision in my life.
Yeah.
I can't even lie to you, because as I reflect back on the 92 season where we made it to the Final Four, we lost to Michigan, that Fab Five team. I really want to come back. I think I had my mind set on leaving, but also I just didn't want to quit on my teammates, so it was more about not quitting on them and not giving up on myself.
Yeah, I love that. One of my favorite quotes that's helped me, like, in the industry, I feel like there's opportunities to get jealous everywhere, or to get down on yourself, be like, oh, he's starting, I'm not starting, or like, this girl's working here and I'm not working there. One time I read this quote, it was like, instead of getting jealous, like, get inspired by that other person.
I like that.
And oh my God, that'll just change your whole world, because instead of like bringing yourself down, being like, I'm not that, it's like, whoa, you kind of take note of what they're doing, and you're like, how can I improve to get there? So it makes you better, and there's no shame or guilt or anything involved. It's just all about bringing a better you every day type thing.
Thank you.
You talked about TD, that it's the best decision you ever made to stay. When you think of maybe not even the basketball stuff, all the stuff that you've done in your life, like if you were 18 and you look ahead till now, I mean, you're an author, you've written your own book, you
Right.
got your own Lorenzo's line of wine, you got the Tony Delk IMAC Regeneration Center, all these things that you've done. Which one back in the early 90s seemed to be the least likely? Like, you look now and say, wow, I really got my own wine.
Right.
Wow, I really got my own IMAC Regeneration Center. Which one would 18-year-old Tony Delk be like, wow, I never saw that coming?
The one that stands out the most is the wine, because I don't drink. And that's the funniest thing. When people say wine, they were like, how did you get involved with wine and you don't even drink?
Yeah.
It was a venture that a friend brought to me probably years ago. And I was so involved with basketball that I didn't even consider doing it. But, once I got back to Kentucky, I went around to a couple of different wineries, and I kind of was like, hey, you know what? This is something new, it's something different. And, I can't say I'm passionate about it that much because I don't drink. But when it comes down to something that you really like, and it's not even always about making money, but I saw so I could give something back to so many people. Because what I did with my profits this year, I gave all of the profits, my half, back to KCH. So it was not only selling wine, but also giving back to a charitable place that, that do so many great things for so many people. So, it was about doing something that could benefit and help the kids. And that's where I'm at, even with my academy, is that I want to make sure those kids are involved in something that's positive for them, but also give them a great outlook on life.
That's it, man. That's great stuff. Every time we talk about it, all the proceeds going to Kentucky Children's Hospital, and, for the youngsters, and then influencing the kids with the academy too. So, man, just helping kids all the way around, for sure. And I'm out of state, so I always, go to the website and watch the episodes of BBN Tonight. So,
Vinny, where do you live? What the heck?
Man, I'm outside of Knoxville, so nothing orange about me, but I'm outside Knoxville. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'll binge them, go to the website and binge all the clips and see all the interviews, and Keep up the great work. And,
You.
and congratulations on getting the opportunity to come back home and talk about the cats for a living. You know, just boom, BBN Tonight. That's perfect. BBN Tonight.
And we'll have to have her
these-
back on for sure. You got to come back on and grace us with your presence and your smile, okay?
You know it. Always
Yeah.
smile. Important.
That's right. So everybody subscribe, download this one, check Anna out, listen to the past episodes as well. You know, Walter Riccardi, we mentioned him. Other former cats have been on, Tom Leach, Dick Gabriel, you know, check those out. Definitely download, subscribe, tell your friends about this one, tweet it, retweet it, share it, and all that good stuff. Because this has been another fun episode with Anna Tarullo on Bleav in Kentucky, presented by Bet Online. We had a blast. Thank you so much, Anna.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Anna.
Thanks, Tony and Vinny.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, take care. Thank you.